Are you looking for the best welding machine? In this video we will look at some of the 6 best welding machine on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Starting at number 1. Hobart Handler 190. As soon as you open the box, you're in for a treat. The quality is very visible in all of the components right away. The 10 feet HR100 gun is very reliable, and the connector is durable. The same goes for the 10 feet ground cable, a very sturdy connector with a heavy-duty clamp. The power cord is 6 feet long, and it too is well made. A flux core wire is also included in the box, along with 2.30-inch nozzle tips. Switching between flux core and solid wire is a piece of cake because of the quick change lever, and it can be done in less than a minute. There's also a button inside for switching between a spool gun and a MIG gun. When you look at the front of this MIG welder, you can see there are only 2 dials and an on/off switch. The upper dial is for the speed of the wire feeder, and the bottom one is voltage control, which lets you choose intensity on a scale from 1 to 7. You can weld any thickness between 24 gauge and 5/16 mild steel. The inner side of the opening features a welding chart, which is very easy to use even for beginners. You simply choose the material you need to weld and its thickness, and it will tell you the exact settings for the voltage and wire feed speed. The best part about this MIG welder is the spool gun option. You can buy that separately if you want to be able to weld aluminum. Of course, you would need pure argon gas for this because you can't use CO2 for aluminum. The duty cycle isn't bad at all. At 130 amps you get 30%, which is understandable, but you can push the amperage up to 190, and at that point, you probably won't get more than 10%. It runs on 230 volts, so you can run it on the outlets you have at home for washing machines or dryers. There isn't really anything wrong with this MIG welder. You can do flux core welding with it too, and you can use a spool gun to weld aluminum. The weight of the machine may be a problem for some, but you can find a decent yet affordable cart, or you can just build one now that you have a welding machine. It's actually super easy. Number 2. Lotus LTPDC 2000D. This Lotus TIG and stick welder has been an Amazon top-selling product for years now, and there's a good reason for that. For its price, this 3-in-1 welding machine is incredible. You can do up to 200 amp TIG welding, 200 amp stick welding, and 50 amp plasma cutting. As a TIG welder, you can go from 15 amp to 200, depending on the type of metal and its thickness. You can install a pedal for controlling the power when TIG welding, but you have to buy that separately. The only drawback it has as a TIG welder is that you can't use it for aluminum because it doesn't convert to AC. Although stick welding hasn't been very popular in recent years, on some occasions you don't really have another option, and if you're going to use the Lotus, you'll be very satisfied with the result. The stick welder provides a very easy arc start and holds a stable arc after. You can penetrate very deep and form a nice, thick weld even on metal plates that are half an inch and thicker. Pilot arc start means you don't have to scratch the surface with the plasma gun in order to cut. Instead, you squeeze the trigger and off you go. It's a great plasma cutter that you can use even on 3/4 inch steel plates. It won't go through completely, but just enough so you can hammer it off. Up to half an inch it will cut all the way through. The recommended consumable sets for plasma cutting are PCS22 and PCS33. It's super easy to switch between each of these functions. The front panel of the welder has only 1 dial for the voltage, and everything else you control using buttons. You can use this machine on both 110 and 220 volt outlets. To sum it up, this is a great machine for its price. The only drawback is that it can't switch to AC current, so you don't have all the TIG welding options. For such a powerful, multi-function machine, it's quite light, weighing 37 pounds. Number 3. AHP Alpha TIG. AHP has upgraded their Alpha TIG welder, and they've done a great job with it. The old one had an interface with 9 knobs and 4 buttons, which can really freak you out if you're a beginner. The new model only has 1 knob for adjusting the amps, and everything else can be adjusted with small buttons and a screen. The interface is very simple and easy to use. On the left side, you can switch between AC/DC TIG and AC/DC stick welding, and under the screen, you can find the buttons for adjusting each setting. You can TIG weld with or without pulse, and you can choose between a lift arc start and a high frequency. You can also choose if you want to use a pedal or not. You can use this machine to TIG weld any material, and with a maximum of 200 amps, you can weld plates of metal that are quite thick. The Rapid Set feature makes setting up the welder for a specific job very easy. Once you press the button, you just pick the electrode you're using, and the thickness of the material, and it sets everything up for you. You can then use the knob for fine-tuning if needed. The Rapid Set feature can be also used for stick welding, which is super useful if you're just getting into welding. The arc starts very easily and it stays stable all throughout the process. You can choose anywhere between 20 and 200 amps, so it's good for different sized metals. Some welders have complained about the quality of the TIG hose, as it seems to break after only a couple of months. Number 4. Hitbox 200 amp MIG/stick/TIG 3-in-1. Hitbox is not a well-known brand, but their welders are best sellers in their category for a reason. This 200 amp multi-purpose welder is super easy to use, quite versatile, and it gets the job done properly. The front panel features a simple, easy-to-use control board. It has 3 buttons and a dial. The first button lets you choose between MIG, TIG, or stick welding. The second button is for switching between solid and flux core wire, and the third one is to feed the wire to the gun when you're setting the machine up. The dial is for adjusting the amperage and voltage. Although there's no dial for setting the wire feed speed, the welder automatically does that for you when you adjust the amperage. On the bottom of the front panel, there's a European-style connector for MIG welding, which is very easy for maintenance and fixing tasks. Then, you have the positive and negative plugs, and below them is a whipcord for switching the polarity. When you look inside the welder, you can see the dispuller is 4-inch and 8 adaptable. It runs very smoothly and it provides a very constant wire feed. The drive system is cast aluminum and it can be used both for solid wire and for flux core. A minor drawback is the length of the ground cable. For some reason, it's only a third of the MIG cord, but the power cord is very long, so you can just move the welder closer to the working area. For stick welding, you can use up to 5 30-seconds electrodes, which is good enough even for heavy-duty welding. There isn't really much more to say about stick welding. The arc starts very easily, and it holds steady all the way through. As a TIG welder, this machine is close to perfect. You can strike an arc by touch and lift so your tungsten rod lasts longer. Plus, once lit, the arc will hold steady with no interruptions. Keep in mind that the TIG torch is not included, so you have to buy one separately. The price of this welder is the biggest issue, but considering what it's capable of and how well it performs, it's well worth it. Number 5. Forni Easy Weld 140 MP. Forni is a very reliable brand. They have been on the market for almost 90 years now, and their quality is only getting better. This 140 amp welder is a great little machine, but it's definitely not meant for heavy-duty welding. Once you begin setting it up, you will see that the cables, hoses, and connectors are very well made. The MIG gun, electrode lead, and ground clamp are also very sturdy. When you look inside, you'll notice that the drive system is cast aluminum, which is not typical for welders in this price range. The control panel is very simple and easy to use. It features just one switch for selecting the welding process and 2 dials. The left dial is for adjusting the amperage and voltage. The other one lets you adjust the wire feed speed. The dispuller can fit up to a 10-pound spool, and it's very easy to assemble. The drive system opens up with a click, and you'll be able to see the wheel, which you can change depending on the type of wire you want to use. Another feature I really like is the chart on the inner side of the door. Even more experienced welders enjoy a feature like this because it can save so much time. The chart will tell you exactly how you should adjust the settings for each welding process, depending on the thickness of the metal that needs to be welded. Now, on to the drawbacks. If you want to use this machine as a TIG welder, you would have to buy the TIG torch separately. But the biggest issue this TIG welder has is that it doesn't do AC, so you can't weld aluminum. There's also no option for attaching a foot pedal or a spool gun. Number 6. WeldPro 155 GSV MIG/stick. As the name suggests, this MIG/stick welder runs a maximum of 155 amps, so it's not a very heavy-duty welding machine. However, it's a very decent welder for its price, as it's capable of performing good welds and it runs both AC and DC current. Right out of the box, you will notice that the quality is not top-notch. The sturdiness of the plastic and metal sheets is just not a match for what you get with the more high-end brands. The same goes for the cables and hoses. On the other hand, the clamp, the lead for the electrode, and the MIG gun are of decent quality. When you begin setting up the welder for MIG welding, you will notice the connectors are quite sturdy as well. Because the product comes with a flux core wire, you might try that one out first. Make sure to check which drive roller is on the drive system, because if you use the solid wire roller for the flux core wire, it simply won't work. The drive system is made of plastic, but a very thick sort of plastic, so I don't think it will break easily. The motor runs well and provides a smooth wire feed. An interesting feature is the automatic feed mode. This means that when there's no arc sense, the wire feeder runs much faster because it assumes that you're not welding but just need to get the wire through the liner in order to begin. That actually makes sense, because in order to adjust the speed of the wire while welding, you first need to do little test welds on a flat surface, and not just watch the wire as it comes out of the gun. The control panel is very simple and easy to use. There are only 2 buttons and 2 dials. The left button lets you choose between 2T and 4T, and the right one is for switching between MIG and stick mode. When in MIG mode, you can use the left dial to adjust the wire feed speed. In stick mode, that same dial lets you control the amperage. The right dial is for voltage control in MIG mode and has no use in stick mode. When run on 220 volts, the stick welder can go up to 155 amps, which is enough for some very thick metal. You would have no problem welding up to ½ inch with a 5/32 electrode, but probably nothing thicker than that.